Hello, and welcome to History Wake. Before we begin, find a comfortable place to sit or lie down. Maybe dim the lights a little. Let yourself relax. Take a slow, deep breath in, and gently let it out. Good. We're about to go on a journey. A journey into a story that feels like it was pulled straight from our darkest dreams, or maybe our hidden history. For years, a chilling tale has whispered through the shadows. It speaks of a secret place, a lonely military base perched on the windswept cliffs of Montauk, New York. It tells of experiments that defy imagination. Experiments with time, with the human mind, and with things beyond our world. Horrors involving children, monsters not of this earth. It's called the Montauk Project. And then, something amazing happened. A wildly popular TV show exploded onto our screens. Stranger Things, a story about a secret lab, a girl with incredible powers, terrifying monsters from another dimension, and a government hiding the truth. It felt so real, so frighteningly believable. It makes you wonder, what if Stranger Things wasn't just made up? What if the creepy nightmares we see in Hawkins, Indiana, were actually inspired by real-life whispers about something wild that went down at Camp Hero in Montauk? Sounds intriguing, right? What if the fiction we love has roots in a truth that's been buried? Tonight, we dive deep. We'll explore the real history of Camp Hero. We'll uncover the strange stories of the Montauk Project. We'll see how they eerily mirror the world of Stranger Things. And we'll ask the big question: could there be any truth hidden within the legend? Or is it simply a dark fairy tale that captured our fears? So, settle in. Let the outside world fade away. We're going back to Montauk. Let's begin. Chapter 1. Camp Hero. The concrete reality beneath the myths. Our story begins not with secret experiments, but with a very real place. A place you can visit today, perched on the very tip of Long Island, New York, where the Atlantic Ocean stretches endlessly, stands Camp Hero. Long before the whispers of strange experiments, Camp Hero had a clear, known purpose. It was built during a time of real fear, World War II. The year was 1942. The threat was real. German submarines lurking off the coast, so the US Army built Camp Hero as a coastal defense fort. Imagine huge 16-inch guns hidden in concrete bunkers, pointed out to sea, ready to defend America's shores. To hide its true nature, they even built fake houses and a fake church, making it look like a harmless little fishing village. As the world changed, so did Camp Hero. The Nazi threat faded, but a new one rose. The Cold War. In the 1960s, the big fear was nuclear missiles flying over the ocean from the Soviet Union. So, Camp Hero transformed again. They built something massive. A giant radar dish. It was enormous, nearly 90 feet tall, constantly rotating its job to scan the skies, looking for incoming bombers or missiles, giving America precious warning time. Maybe just 30 minutes. This giant radar dish is still there today. It's the last one of its kind left standing in the entire United States. Then, in 1981, something official happened. The US government closed Camp Hero. It was abandoned. In 1984, the land was given to New York State to become a public park. Nature began to take back the concrete. The huge guns were buried. The buildings started to crumble. Walk the trails today, and you'll see decaying concrete bunkers, half hidden by trees. You might see faded warning signs. Danger Uxo. That means unexploded bombs might still be buried there. It's a quiet, lonely place now. Wind whistles through the empty windows of old buildings. The giant radar dish stands silent against the sky, a relic of a different time. This is the real Camp Hero. A place built for defense, then left behind. A place of concrete, steel, and history, slowly being reclaimed by the sea and the woods. It's peaceful, but also strangely empty, haunted, perhaps just by its own past. It feels like a place holding secrets, simply because it's been forgotten. But what happens when an empty, forgotten place meets wild stories? What happens when people start looking at those decaying bunkers and that giant, silent radar dish, and imagine something much darker hidden beneath? That is where the legend truly begins. Chapter 2. Whispers in the Bunkers. The birth of the Montauk legend. The real Camp Hero is fascinating enough, but in the years after its abandonment, something else began to grow in the shadows of its decaying buildings. Stories. Wild, incredible stories. This chapter isn't about proving those stories true or false. It's about understanding how the legend of the Montauk Project came to life and who started telling it. Our journey into the myth begins with two men, Preston Nichols and Al Bielek. In the late 1980s and early 1990s, they began sharing memories. Not ordinary memories, they claimed, but ones that had been buried deep inside them, hidden away for years. Preston Nichols presented himself as an electrical engineer and parapsychologist. He said he had worked on secret projects. He described a terrifying experience, being abducted repeatedly, not by aliens, he said, but by shadowy government figures connected to Camp Hero. He claimed they wiped his mind clean after each visit, forcing him to relearn his own involvement over and over. According to Nichols, the purpose of his work was far beyond ordinary science. Al Bielek's story was even more unbelievable, and it started decades earlier. Bielek claimed he was actually Edward Cameron, a sailor aboard the USS Eldridge during the infamous and highly disputed Philadelphia experiment in 1943. That story, for those who don't know, claims the US Navy tried to make a warship invisible using powerful electromagnetic fields, and that the experiment went horribly wrong, teleporting the ship, driving sailors insane, or fusing them into the metal. Bielek said he didn't just survive the Philadelphia experiment. He claimed he was thrown forward in time, landing right at Camp Hero in the year 1983. And what did Bielek say he found there in 1983? Not an abandoned park, but a fully operational, top-secret underground facility humming with terrifying activity. He described seeing things that sound like pure science fiction. Together, Nichols and Bielek, along with a writer named Peter Moon, wove these recovered memories into a book published in 1992, The Montauk Project, Experiments in Time. This book became the Bible of the Montauk legend. It sold incredibly well, spreading the story far and wide. So, what exactly were the horrifying experiments they claimed happened deep beneath Camp Hero? Let's break down the core allegations. The Philadelphia connection. They claimed the Montauk Project wasn't new. It was the direct continuation of the research started with the Philadelphia experiment. The goal, mastering teleportation and, even more incredibly, opening portals to other times and other dimensions. Psychic warfare. Nichols claimed his job was building machines to amplify and control psychic powers. They allegedly kidnapped people, especially gifted children and teenagers, often homeless or vulnerable runaways, nicknamed the Montauk Boys. These children, they said, were subjected to extreme trauma, powerful drugs like LSD, and intense mental conditioning to unlock psychic abilities like telepathy, telekinesis, and even seeing into the future. The monster and the shutdown. The most chilling claim involved creating a stable portal. The Lek alleged that in August 1983, their time portal experiment succeeded. But something terrible came through, not a friendly visitor, but a terrifying, inhuman creature. This interdimensional monster, they claimed, broke loose inside the base, causing chaos and forcing them to shut down the entire Montauk project in a panic. The scale and secrecy. The alleged facility was immense. They described not just the surface buildings, but 12 vast levels deep underground. Where did the money come from? They pointed to billions of dollars in stolen Nazi gold, supposedly funneled through big companies like ITT and Krupp AG to fund this hidden world. Another key figure emerged. Duncan Cameron. He was said to be Alba Lek's brother and one of the most powerful psychics developed in the program. His alleged abilities, moving objects with his mind, projecting mental images, would sound very familiar to fans of a certain TV show. The legend didn't stay confined to books. In 2008, a strange, hairless carcass washed ashore near Montauk. Dubbed the Montauk Monster, its bizarre appearance fueled speculation that it was an escaped experiment from nearby Plum Island Animal Disease Center, which some linked back to the Montauk Project stories. Then, in 2015, a film called Montauk Chronicles presented Nichols, Lek and Cameron telling their stories directly to the camera, giving the legend a new wave of attention. This is the powerful, dark fairy tale that grew from the lonely ruins of Camp Hero. It speaks of unimaginable technology, government conspiracies, the abuse of the innocent, and monsters from beyond. It feels ripped from the pages of science fiction. But where did this story really come from? Was it uncovered truth, or something else entirely? And how could such wild tales possibly connect to the real world, or inspire one of the biggest TV shows of our time? To understand that, we need to look at the shadows cast by real history. Chapter 3. Echoes in the Darkness. When real shadows inspired fiction. The story of the Montauk Project feels like pure science fiction. Time portals, psychic children, interdimensional monsters. It seems too wild to be real. What if the legend, however exaggerated, tapped into something deeper? What if it resonated because we know governments have done terrible, secret things? To understand why the Montauk tale feels chillingly plausible, we need to step away from Camp Hero and look at the documented darkness of the 20th century. The Cold War wasn't just about spies and missiles. It was also a hidden war for control. Control of information, technology, and even the human mind. Governments, desperate for an edge, funded experiments that crossed ethical lines, often on their own citizens. MK Ultra. The search for mind control. Perhaps the most infamous example is the CIA's SMK Ultra program. Its goal? To find ways to control human behavior. How far did they go? They secretly gave powerful drugs, especially LSD, to people without their knowledge or consent. Prisoners, hospital patients, even ordinary people in bars or restaurants were unwitting test subjects. They subjected people to extreme sensory deprivation, sleep deprivation, and intense psychological torture to try and break them and rebuild their minds. They explored hypnosis, electroshock therapy, and other brutal methods, hoping to create the perfect spy or assassin, someone who could be programmed and controlled. The program was officially halted in the 1970s, and many of its records were destroyed. But the fragments that survived revealed a terrifying reality. The government was willing to experiment cruelly on people in the name of national security. Operation Paperclip, borrowing from the enemy. At the end of World War II, the race was on. The US and Soviet Union scrambled to capture Nazi Germany's top scientists and their advanced knowledge. Operation Paperclip was the American effort. It brought hundreds of German scientists, engineers, and technicians to the US. Many had worked directly for the Nazi regime, developing terrifying weapons like the V-2 rocket, which killed thousands in London. Their pasts were often whitewashed. The goal was simple: get their expertise fast, no matter their history. Wernher von Braun, the rocket scientist who later helped put Americans on the moon, is the most famous example. The message: winning the Cold War justified partnering with former enemies, ignoring troubling pasts. If you could use Nazi rocket science, why not explore other, darker possibilities? The Tuskegee nightmare, betrayal of trust. The darkness wasn't confined to spies and foreign scientists. For 40 years, the U.S. Public Health Service ran a horrific study in Tuskegee, Alabama. Hundreds of poor black men with syphilis were denied treatment, even after penicillin became the cure in the 1940s. They were lied to, told they were being treated for bad blood, while doctors watched the disease slowly destroy their bodies and minds, just to study its progression. Wives were infected, children were born with congenital syphilis, all for the sake of research. This wasn't a shadowy conspiracy theory. It was a documented, decades-long, government-sanctioned medical atrocity against its own vulnerable citizens. Camp Heroes' real mysteries. Knowing these real programs, Camp Heroes' documented oddities suddenly feel more significant. They aren't proof of the Montauk project, but they fuel the questions. The pulsing radar. Residents reported the massive SAGE radar dish caused strange effects. Animals panicking, persistent headaches in people, car engines stalling, TV and radios crackling with static every 12 seconds, precisely matching the radar's rotation. Was it just powerful technology or something more? The underground unknown. While no evidence supports a 12-level complex, explorers and park officials confirmed sealed entrances leading downward. What's behind those welded-shut doors? Storage, old generators, or something else? The abandoned bus that wasn't. Despite closing officially in 1981, locals reported seeing unmarked trucks delivering food and supplies to Camp Hero well into the 1980s. Why? Who was still using it? The bridge between fact and fiction. To understand why the Montauk legend feels so chillingly possible, we need to see how its dark threads connect to real, documented history. Let's walk through these echoes together. First, consider the CIA's MKUltra. We know for a fact that in the 1950s through the 1970s, the US government experimented on unwitting citizens, testing mind control techniques using LSD, sensory deprivation, and psychological torture. Now listen to the Montauk claim that they tortured children with drugs and trauma to create psychic super soldiers. The methods are eerily similar, only the purpose shifts from Cold War espionage to science fiction. Then there's Operation Paperclip. After World War II, America actively recruited Nazi scientists like Wernher von Braun, overlooking their past to harness their expertise. The Montauk story takes this unsettling truth and twists it, claiming Nazi gold funded the project, and that former Nazi engineers worked alongside Americans in those hidden bunkers. Once again, the shadow of real history gives the fiction weight. The darkest parallel comes from Tuskegee. For 40 years, the US government deliberately denied treatment to black men with syphilis, watching them suffer and die for research. The Montauk tale speaks of Montauk boys, homeless or kidnapped children, subjected to painful psychic experiments. Both stories reveal the same horrific pattern. The powerful exploiting the vulnerable behind closed doors. Even the setting feels plausible. We know places like Plum Island, a real animal disease research lab near Montauk, existed in secrecy. So when people whispered about underground labs beneath Camp Hero, it wasn't pure fantasy. It was the Cold War's obsession with hidden facilities taken to an extreme. And the experiments themselves? The real government poured billions into bizarre weapons during the Cold War. Mind-reading devices, radiation tests, even psychic spy programs like the Stargate project. The Montauk legend simply pushed this obsession further. From studying telepathy to ripping open portals to other dimensions, the genius of the Montauk story isn't that it invented new horrors. It's that it took the real fears we carry, of government betrayal, of hidden atrocities, of science without ethics, and gave them a name, a place, and a face. That lonely radar tower overlooking the Atlantic. So when we hear about time portals and psychic children, part of us shivers, not because it's impossible, but because we know that in the shadows of history, truth has often been stranger than we ever imagined. The Montauk legend took the fear generated by real programs like MKUltra and Tuskegee, the fear of unchecked government power, secret experiments, and the abuse of the innocent, and gave it a specific, terrifying location, the decaying, isolated Camp Hero. It wove real anxieties into a science fiction tapestry. So, when Preston, Nichols, and Albie Legg told their stories in the 1990s, they weren't speaking into a void, they were speaking to a public that already knew, deep down, that sometimes the truth is stranger than fiction. The real question became, how much stranger? And could this specific story, born from shadows and whispers, actually spark one of the biggest pop culture phenomena of our time? Chapter 4. From Montauk to Hawkins. When legend became entertainment, the legend of the Montauk Project remained a fascinating, dark whisper for decades, known mainly to conspiracy enthusiasts and locals. Then, in 2016, something extraordinary happened. A television show exploded onto screens, captivating millions worldwide. Stranger Things, and for those who knew the Montauk Tailies, the similarities weren't just coincidental, they were startling. It felt like someone had taken the whispers from Camp Hero and brought them to life. The story begins with two brothers, Matt and Ross Duffer. Back in 2015, when they pitched their idea to Netflix, it wasn't called Stranger Things. Its original name was Montauk. Their vision was clear. A small, isolated coastal town, a sinister government laboratory hidden within an old military base, a young boy vanishing without a trace, a mysterious girl with shaved hair and incredible psychic powers escaping from that lab, terrifying creatures emerging from a nightmarish alternate dimension, a group of ordinary kids stumbling upon this terrifying secret. Sound familiar? The parallels to the Montauk legend are undeniable. The girl with powers? In the stories told by Preston Nichols and Albie Legg, one psychic subject stood out, Duncan Cameron. He was described as incredibly powerful, able to move objects with his mind and project mental images, abilities remarkably similar to Eleven's telekinesis and her use of a sensory deprivation tank to remotely view places and people. While Eleven became a beloved hero, Duncan Cameron was portrayed as a tragic victim within the Montauk narrative, the hidden lab. The imposing, secretive Hawkins National Laboratory, buried deep underground. It feels like a direct echo of the alleged multi-level complex beneath Camp Hero described in Montauk Project stories. The cold, clinical atmosphere, the unethical experiments on children, the shadowy government agents. These elements powerfully mirror the darker claims about Camp Hero. The monster, the terrifying Demogorgon of Season 1, a creature from the upside down, chillingly aligns with Albilec's claim that the Montauk project accidentally unleashed an interdimensional monster in 1983, forcing the base's shutdown. The original title, the connection was cemented right in the show's DNA. The very first script for what became Stranger Things was titled The Montauk Project. The pilot episode was named Chapter 1, The Vanishing of Will Byers, but its original name was simply The Montauk Project. The Duffer Brothers weren't hiding their inspiration. So why Hawkins, Indiana? Why not Montauk? The name changed, and the location moved inland. Why? Practicality. Filming on the real Montauk coast presented huge challenges. The weather is unpredictable, the location is remote, and filming costs were much higher. An inland setting in Georgia was far more manageable for a TV production. Creative freedom. Setting the story in the fictional town of Hawkins, Indiana, gave the Duffer Brothers complete freedom. They weren't tied to the specific geography or existing legends of Montauk. They could invent their own mythology, the Upside Down, Vecna, the Mind Flayer, without being constrained by the details of the real-world conspiracy theories. Relatability. A small Midwestern town in the 1980s felt more universally relatable. American audiences than a specific coastal military location. It tapped into a shared nostalgia. The legacy lives on in the details, even though the setting changed. Echoes of Montauk still resonate within Stranger Things. The look, the design of Hawkins Lab, with its brutalist concrete architecture and heavy security, visually echoes the real Camp Heroes, decaying military structures and the imposing radar tower. The feel, the atmosphere of government secrecy, the fear of hidden experiments, and the vulnerability of children facing unimaginable horrors. These core themes are straight from the heart of the Montauk legend. The radar, while not explicitly named, the massive, ominous structures associated with the lab and its experiments visually recall Camp Heroes' giant sage radar dish, a symbol of hidden power scanning unseen realms. The power of the story. The journey from obscure conspiracy theory to global phenomena shows the incredible power of storytelling. The Duffer Brothers took the chilling essence of the Montauk legend, the fear of hidden government projects, the potential of psychic abilities, the terror of otherworldly threats, and transformed it into a deeply human story about friendship, courage, and confronting the unknown. They didn't adapt the Montauk project literally. They used its dark energy as a spark. Stranger Things became a phenomenon because it tapped into something primal, that childhood fear of monsters in the dark, and the adult fear of powerful forces operating beyond our control. And it did so by drawing inspiration from a place where history and dark fantasy had already blurred. The lonely cliffs of Montauk. But how much of the original Montauk legend holds up to scrutiny? Could any of it possibly be true? To answer that, we need to look closer at the claims themselves. Chapter 5. Shadows and Light. Examining the Montauk claims. The story of the Montauk project is powerful and frightening. It feels like it could be true, especially knowing the real darkness governments have hidden. But feeling true and being true are very different things. Now, we step back and ask, what does the evidence say? Can any part of this dark legend be verified? The challenge of proof. Stories like Preston Nichols and Al Bielek's are incredibly hard to prove or disprove. They rely on recovered memories. Recollections, they say, were buried or erased. Memories, especially of trauma, can be complex and sometimes unreliable. There are no official documents stamped Montauk Project. Psychic Time Portal Division. We look for other ways to test the story. The Philadelphia Anchor. A sinking story. Much of the Montauk legend builds on the Philadelphia experiment. Al Bielek claimed he was Edward Cameron. a sailor teleported from the USS Eldridge in 1943 to Montauk in 1983, but historians and the US Navy itself have thoroughly debunked the Philadelphia experiment. Ship logs show the USS Eldridge was nowhere near Philadelphia on the claimed date. The technology described, making a ship invisible or teleporting it, was far beyond 1940s science, and remains impossible today. No credible evidence or witnesses support the core event. If the foundation of Bielik's story crumbles, it casts deep doubt on his Montauk claims. Digging into Camp Hero. What's really underground? The legend describes a vast, 12-level underground city beneath Camp Hero. What do we actually know? Official blueprints from the Army Corps of Engineers show the expected infrastructure. Generator rooms, fuel storage, water tanks, ventilation shafts, typical for a large military base of its era. Nothing hints at sprawling labs or time portals. Geologists using ground-penetrating radar haven't found evidence of structures deeper than 2 or 3 levels. The bedrock under Montauk is shallow, making massive subterranean construction extremely difficult and unlikely. Park officials confirm some sealed tunnels exist, but these likely lead to old utilities or storage. Common in decommissioned bases, there are no verified reports of laboratories or living quarters hidden below. The missing children, a chilling claim without corroboration. One of the most disturbing allegations is the use of homeless or abducted children. The Montauk boys as test subjects. This deserves serious scrutiny. Researchers examining local police records from the 1970s and 1980s found no unusual spike in missing children reports around Montauk. No families came forward claiming a child was taken for experiments. Despite the widespread publicity of the Montauk stories, while tragic cases of missing children occur everywhere, there is no pattern linking disappearances specifically to Camp Hero during the alleged project timeframe. The 1983 shutdown, incident, or inconsistency. Bielik pinpointed August 12, 1983, as the day the monster escaped and the project was destroyed, yet official records show Camp Hero was already closed and largely abandoned by 1981. There was no active military presence to suddenly evacuate or shut down a secret project in 1983. Local newspapers from that time report nothing unusual happening at Camp Hero in August 1983. No emergency vehicles, explosions, or sudden military activity. Life in Montauk continued normally. Jacker, respected scientist and UFO researcher, known for open-minded investigation, analyzed the Montauk claims. He highlighted numerous inconsistencies in dates, locations, and technical details provided by Nichols and Bielik, concluding the story lacked factual grounding. The Nazi gold, a convenient, unverifiable source. Funding a massive secret project requires massive money. The legend points to $10 billion in recovered Nazi gold. However, historians find no evidence of such an enormous, undocumented stash of Nazi gold being controlled by the alleged backers for secret US projects. Significant Nazi gold discoveries are documented and accounted for. They didn't vanish into black projects. Why does the story endure? Understanding the belief. If the evidence is so thin, why does the Montauk Project legend persist so powerfully? The reasons are human and deeply rooted. The power of trauma framing. Nichols and Bielik framed their experiences as recovered memories of trauma and mind control. This taps into genuine public awareness of real abuses, making the story feel emotionally plausible. Distrust of authority. After Watergate, the Tuskegee syphilis study, and other government betrayals, people naturally suspect that powerful institutions hide terrible secrets. Montauk becomes a symbol for that deep-seated distrust, the allure of the unexplained. Abandoned places like Camp Hero feel mysterious, sealed doors, decaying technology, and local oddities beg for explanation. A fantastical story fills the void left by incomplete official history. Cultural resonance. Stories like The X-Files taught us to want to believe. We enjoy the thrill of the unknown, the possibility that reality is stranger than it seems. Montauk fits perfectly into this cultural space. The verdict of evidence. Based on the available facts, the Montauk project as described by Nichols, Bielek, and Moon does not hold up as historical reality. Key claims lack evidence, contradict documented history, or rely on impossible science. It functions powerfully as modern folklore. A dark myth born from a real place and real anxieties. But myths still matter. They reflect our fears, our questions about power, and our fascination with the boundaries of science. The Montauk legend, even if not factually true, became culturally powerful enough to inspire a global phenomenon like Stranger Things. Its legacy isn't in hidden bunkers, but in the stories we tell and the questions we keep asking about what might lurk in the shadows of our world. To see that legacy in action, let's visit Montauk as it is today. Chapter 6. Montauk Today, where legends walk the shore. The giant radar dish still stands. It's the most visible reminder of Camp Hero's past, silhouetted against the sky where the land meets the sea. This isn't a hidden base anymore. It's Camp Hero State Park, a place of walking trails, bird-watching, and families enjoying picnics. But the whispers of the Montauk project haven't gone away. They've become part of the landscape itself. This chapter is about the place as it exists now, and how the legend lives on. Walk the paths today. You'll see nature slowly reclaiming the concrete. Trees grow through cracks in old gun emplacements. Vines cover crumbling walls. Wildflowers bloom where soldiers once stood guard. It's peaceful, even beautiful. Park signs point the way to scenic overlooks, explaining the real history. World War II defenses, Cold War vigilance. But look closer, you'll find things that spark the imagination. Heavy steel doors, welded shut, set into hillsides. Park signs warn sternly, "Do not enter, danger." What's behind them? Old generator rooms, storage tunnels. The official answer is mundane. Safety hazards, unstable structures, maybe unexploded ordnance. Yet, the sight of a sealed door in a lonely woods inevitably fuels questions. Graffiti inside some accessible ruins. "Stranger, help me," they watch. Symbols that hint at the darker stories told about this place. Are there jokes, tributes, or messages left by true believers? The radar tower itself. It's silent now, a relic. But why is it still here? Why hasn't it been torn down? Officials say it's historically significant, the last of its kind. But standing beneath its massive, rusting frame, it's hard not to feel its imposing presence. A silent giant holding its secrets. The legend as livelihood. The Montauk Project story hasn't faded. It's become an industry. Conspiracy tours. Guides lead groups through the park, pointing to sealed doors and radar towers, weaving the tales of Preston Nichols, Al Bielek psychic children, and escaped monsters. They speak with conviction, turning the peaceful park into a stage for the dark legend. Books and media. New books, podcasts, and YouTube channels dedicated to the mysteries of Montauk appear regularly, often rehashing the old claims with fresh speculation. Local buzz. Walk into some Montauk shops or cafes and you might find books about the project t-shirts with the radar dish and cryptic symbols. or hear locals debating the latest strange occurrence. A light seen near the base at night, a rumor of renewed government activity, a town divided. Not everyone in Montauk embraces the legend. For many residents, it's a source of frustration, annoyance. Some locals feel the constant conspiracy talk overshadows the town's real charm. Its fishing heritage, beautiful beaches, and natural wonders. They see the tours and merchandise as exploiting their home for sensationalism. Distrust. Others, however, look at the sealed tunnels, the occasional unexplained activity, like lights seen after dark in restricted areas, and the government's silence on certain aspects, and feel a lingering suspicion. Why won't they just open it all up if there's nothing to hide? Is a common sentiment. This distrust, fueled by real government secrecy in the past, keeps the embers of the legend glowing. The unanswered questions. The park rangers have a standard answer: safety and preservation. But the lack of a more detailed, transparent explanation for every sealed entrance or historical anomaly leaves a space where imagination and suspicion can grow. The raider's last pulse. Perhaps the most potent symbol is the raider dish itself. On a clear day, you can stand beneath it, listening to the wind hum through its metal grates. It's a monument to a bygone era of visible threats and known enemies. Yet, it also stands as a beacon for stories of invisible threats and hidden enemies, psychic powers, interdimensional monsters, government conspiracies. The truth of Camp Hero is layered. Its concrete reality is the history of coastal guns and Cold War radar. Its shadow is the legend of the Montauk Project, a story born in the 1990s from recovered memories and wild claims. And its present is a state park where history, nature, and persistent myth walk side by side. People visit for the ocean views, the history, or the thrill of the unknown. They leave carrying different things. Photos of a scenic hike, a deeper appreciation for Cold War history, or perhaps the unsettling feeling that maybe, just maybe, the quietest places hold the loudest secrets. This duality, the peaceful park and the enduring dark legend, is the true legacy of Montauk today. It shows us how powerfully stories can take root, especially when they grow in the fertile ground of a forgotten place and our own deep-seated fears. As we prepare to conclude, we must ask, why do these shadows linger so long after the light of facts has tried to dispel them? Why the shadows remain, the endless allure of the unknown. As the sun sets over Montauk Point, painting the radar tower in shades of gold and shadow, we reach the end of our journey. We've walked the real history of Camp Hero. The guns, the radar, the concrete slowly returning to Earth. We've followed the birth and spread of the dark Montauk Project legend, the recovered memories, the psychic children, the monsters from beyond. We've seen how real government secrets lent it an unsettling plausibility, and how its dark energy sparked the global phenomena of Stranger Things. We've examined the claims and found them lacking in evidence, built on shifting sands. Yet, the story persists. The tours continue. The questions about sealed doors linger. Why? If it's not true, why won't the shadow of Montauk fade? The answer lies not in hidden bunkers, but deep within ourselves. We are storytellers. Humans crave narratives. We see patterns, even where none exist. An abandoned military base, with its sealed tunnels and decaying technology, is a blank canvas. The Montauk Project painted a terrifying, thrilling picture onto that canvas. It offered an explanation for the unease such places evoke. An explanation far more dramatic and satisfying than old utility tunnels or safety hazards. It transformed empty concrete into a stage 4 cosmic drama. We distrust power, The 20th century taught us harsh lessons. MK Ultra, Tuskegee, Watergate. These are not legends. They are documented betrayals. They prove powerful institutions can and do operate in the shadows, sometimes committing horrific acts. The Montauk legend taps directly into this profound, justified distrust. It whispers, if they did that, what else might they be capable of? It gives a specific name and place to our fear of unseen authority. We long for wonder and warning. Deep down, part of us wants the world to be stranger, bigger, more mysterious than the mundane routine suggests. The idea of hidden dimensions, psychic powers, or advanced technology beyond our understanding is thrilling. It sparks our imagination. At the same time, the Montauk story serves as a powerful warning tale, a modern myth reminding us of the dangers of unchecked ambition, the corruption of power, and the vulnerability of the innocent. Even as fiction, these themes resonate because they reflect real human struggles. Stranger Things and the modern myth, the Duffer Brothers understood this perfectly. They didn't adapt the Montauk Project. They harnessed its essence. They took that potent mix of government secrecy, childhood vulnerability, psychic potential, and interdimensional terror, and wove it into a story about friendship, courage, and the enduring power of connection. Stranger Things works because it speaks to the same core human fascinations and fears that gave rise to the Montauk legend itself. It proves that these shadows, whether born in fact or pure imagination, hold immense power over us. The true legacy of Montauk. So, what is Camp Hero's real secret? Perhaps it's this. Its greatest power was never mind control or time travel. Its power lies in its ability to become a mirror. It reflects our fascination with the past, our anxiety about hidden forces, our thirst for wonder, and our deep-seated need for stories that make sense of the darkness. Both the darkness out there and the darkness we know exists within human institutions. The giant radar dish still stands. It is a monument to a time when the enemy was known, flying in from across the sea. Today, the enemies we imagine are more elusive, hidden in government files, lurking in other dimensions, or born in the shadows of our own mistrust. Camp Hero and the legend it inspired reminds us that history is rarely just the facts in a book. It's also the stories we tell about those facts. Stories that comfort, thrill, warn, and sometimes, like 11 reaching through the void, help us feel less alone in the face of the unknown. The waves keep crashing on the shore at Montauk Point. The wind still whistles through the old radar tower. And the stories, they will keep being told. Thank you for joining me on History Wake.